Hi. Welcome, Yotam and Sandra.
Thank you.
I'm doing this podcast where we explore the singular choices we make as parents. How about you start by introducing yourselves?
Well, I'm Sandra. I'm Colombian. I'm 41 years old. I live in Australia. We've lived here for 8 years. I work at a public library. I had a fun job. I plan and deliver some of the library programs. We have lots of literacy programs for adults, for children, like story time, toddler time, baby rhyme time. So I work with a lot of parents, mothers mostly, and also digital programs for children, like school aged. And I have a 5-year-old boy who's lovely and who is asleep at the moment.
My name is Yotam, her husband, and the father of the son who is asleep. I work in venture capital. I work with founders. I both invest, help these founders along the way. What else should I say? I'm very involved in raising our kid and cooking and cleaning
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and yeah, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. As a family, yeah, we like to spend time together traveling, which we haven't done much since we became parents. And I like to eat what your Tom cooks.
What
Yeah.
are you cooking, Yotam?
Oh,
What's your favorite thing or Sandra's favorite thing?
I like his pesto. No, whatever he makes. Today he made chicken soup, which is, it might sound basic, but it's so good.
I'm definitely the cook in the family.
So you were saying you have a 5-year-old. I still haven't met him. I look forward to it. How long have you been together?
Since December 2012.
So that's, no, we've been married for 11 years and together for 12.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yes.
Cool. Well,
Mhm.
thanks a lot for introducing yourselves to the people who don't know you. I know you guys are very thoughtful people. We've had on many occasions discussed about a lot of topics like super deep discussions. I'd love to hear what is something that is very important to you and that you think you're doing differently than most people are doing, if any, with the how you're raising your kid.
Well, I think one thing that we're doing differently, or I'm not necessarily differently. So Norm speaks three languages. So because my native language is Hebrew and Sandra's is Spanish. So I speak to him in Hebrew, she speaks to him in Spanish.
Mhm.
And then at school, I mean, outside, he speaks English. It's challenging because he defaults to English. But I guess it's something that we care about and we try to maintain that.
Mhm. Yeah.
You guys are talking which language together?
English
Yeah.
between
Okay.
us.
Only
Yeah.
English.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every now and then we switch to Spanish when he says, "Oh, I want to practice," or just to for him to have a little bit of fun, for Noam to have a little bit of fun. But yeah, that's very occasionally. Between the two of us, we speak English, but every time we talk to Noam, we speak to him in either Spanish or English, and we ask him to reply in Spanish or Hebrew. Sorry, Hebrew. I said English. Yeah, Hebrew.
Have you been doing this since he was born?
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. And it's, I think it becomes increasingly more difficult because English becomes stronger for him.
Mhm.
So it just becomes harder for him just to have the vocabulary. It is so much easier for him to respond in English. He
Yeah.
understands everything that we tell him in
In
Hebrew and Spanish, but it's just harder for him to respond in those languages. But we try, and for me at least, as long as I feel that it's not like getting on his nerves, I'll continue doing it.
Mm.
If it does get on his nerves, then I'll reevaluate.
Has he been rejecting it at
No,
all? No.
no.
Okay.
No,
Interesting.
he has asked me, like, he's like, you keep telling me to do it in Spanish. And I say, yeah, because you keep going back to English. And he says, yeah, but you understand English. So I always go back and explain to him why is it that we do this. And I told him, when you went to Colombia, we were in Colombia a year ago, exactly. And first of all, his Spanish became so much better. He was able to communicate with my mom, with my aunt, with my grandma, with everyone around. So I keep telling him, hey, remember how when we went to Colombia, you were able to talk to others? And yeah, we talked to him about how special it is to speak three different languages and understand like three different worlds. Yeah. So yeah, we try. I think I will continue trying, because I one thing I don't want for the future is that he, because I've heard that once we went to a shop and there was a young woman who said, like, we moved here from Chile when I was 3 years old, and then my parents stopped talking to me, speaking Spanish to me. So I completely forgot it. I understand what you're saying, but I cannot say that. And he was there and he saw that. So I always think about it. I don't want him to say that in the future, that we kind of gave up, and that's
Is it challenging to commit to that?
It's not challenging to speak to him in our language. It's more challenging to try to ask for him constantly. Hey,
yes.
like pretend like you didn't understand it in English and then ask him to say it in Hebrew.
Because are
Yeah.
you expecting him to reply in the same language that you're talking
Yeah.
to them? Okay. So if he's not, which as you were saying, by default he would reply in
Yeah.
English, are
Yeah.
Yeah.
you going after him and say it in Hebrew or say it in Spanish?
Well, like a little bit without being too annoying about it.
Yeah, I definitely sometimes it sometimes gets on my nerves, especially if I know that he knows how to say it. One thing that I have been doing is, if he's telling me something, like he was telling me that one of his friends at school was being kind of mean to him,
Mm-hmm.
and let him use his English because that's how he communicates his
Mm.
emotions, right? And I didn't want to interrupt it and say, okay, now say it in English. Oh, so when it's something like that, that I know that he still doesn't have the language like for that depth, I just let him say it in English, but then I always reply in Spanish and I ask him questions in Spanish
Mm.
and he adds in Spanglish. But yeah, but if it's something like me that toy and he says that in English, I'm like, no, I didn't get that. Can you say it in
Mm.
Spanish? Yeah.
I'm very impressed at how fast kids understand, even if they don't reply back in the language that you expect, but they would still have the behavior, like react to what you're saying. I mean, like they understand. They just don't want to follow the exact rules, but still they have it and how easy it is to do that. And so, coming back to my initial question, what are you intentionally trying to do with your kid? So there's this language thing. Why is it so important, or why do you think it's so important? There might be an obvious response of, like so that he can adapt and go wherever, or but is there something else?
I think for me, there's a certain feeling when I speak in Hebrew versus in English. I mean, at the end of the day, Hebrew is my native language. So the ability to speak in that language and also to speak with the rest of the family in that language. And beyond that, I just think it's nice to have like the ability to speak more than one language. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Talking about this feeling, what is it?
Well, I find that when I speak to my parents, it's a lot more comfortable for me speaking to them in Hebrew, not in English. But yeah, I don't know if that's a good explanation because that's the language that I've always spoke to them in. Um, but yeah, I guess there is something about the native language where you feel probably most comfortable
Mhm.
expressing.
Yeah. In my case, it's more, I feel like there are two things. One is like an identity. Like I am proud of where I come from, that I am, yeah, that I'm Latina, that I speak Spanish, and I want him to know that. And also, the other thing is that he would be able to communicate with my family because they only one of my cousins speaks English, but the rest of my family doesn't speak English. So for me, it was more like that. I want my son to be able to communicate with my mom and my grandma. So yeah, those two things. And then, of course, I have read about the plasticity of the brain and that is better for children. But yeah, that would come third. That's
Mm.
not actually the main reason why we do this.
I envy your kid for being able to be raised with 3 different languages. Is there anything else that you're intentionally doing with him that you see is different from other parents around you?
I don't know, but um, just that like the discipline aspect, like the discipline side of it. I don't think in Australia it's very common still that there's physical punishment, for example,
Mm.
or something like
Can
that.
you walk me through this discipline thing?
Yeah, like slapping their hands or their bums or
Mm.
the face. They do something like naughty.
Just to clarify, that's what don't.
Yeah.
That's what we don't do. Yeah. But
Mm.
what
I think in general, try not to be too harsh in terms of discipline,
yeah.
because I think like if you take it too much to an extreme, it makes the kid behave actually worse probably. So just trying to be flexible. I mean, sure, there's certain things that we like the clear like red line. You cannot cross that. For example, like a few times where he got very upset and would like hit someone, us or
Mm.
Like
in the middle of a tantrum.
yeah.
And that is something that like no, we would never accept. But generally speaking, like we try not to make a big deal about like most things and just try to explain to him what is like the right behavior versus wrong behavior.
Saying that in Australia, what's the common
I
approach to discipline?
I don't know, but there are some people that would slap their kid.
yeah.
Mm.
Like I remember he came back once from his kindy saying, "Oh, the mother of this girl, you know that they slapped her on the face," and we were like, "Smack her,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
smack her." Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, that's like for me, it just sounds like something that like just doesn't make any sense. You should be able to discipline your kid without having to touch them.
Talking about this specifically, let's say he's having like a crisis and he's getting physical and trying to, I don't know, slap or whatever happens. What's your common reaction? And do you actually have the same? What's been working also?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, it doesn't happen very frequently. It usually happens when he's too hungry. And clearly, like he is in a state very difficult for him to control how he behaves. For me, the first thing that I do is I put in my earplug.
Okay. And
Yes.
how does he react to this?
Well, it depends on the situation, but
Mm.
if I see that there's nothing pretty much I can do to stop him from like melting down, I'll just having meltdown and try not to react to it, basically. Because that's usually what happens. He'll just like have a meltdown and scream and cry and whatever, and eventually he will run out of steam.
Mm.
And at that point, it is where you can actually like try to talk and figure things out.
Yeah.
In my case, well, a couple of times that he hit me, it makes me so mad because yeah, that's something maybe because of the way I was raised and because yeah, my mom used to hit me, not like really, really bad.
Mm.
But it's nice,
Mm.
right? So there's no tolerance for that. So a couple of times I have just held him
Mm.
so that he doesn't hurt himself also because he can also hit himself like
Mm.
with a chair or something, or because I know that he's not conscious at that moment. He needs to
Mhm.
eat. I just grab him and I tell him, I'm not going to let you hurt me or
Mm.
yourself until he calms down. A couple of times it has ended up in him hugging me and just staying there, just crying until he eats or calms down. But I think Yotam is more calm and that, or he knows how to react to that better. I feel like it triggers something in me, and I sometimes have to just leave the scene, and because otherwise I would make things worse.
I have another question, which is still about like thoughtful choices. What is something that you would completely agree with the mainstream thing that everyone's doing and that you've tried and you're like, yeah, that's what's working the best. And we're doing it as well.
Going to bed time. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Seems to be working pretty well.
just generally speaking, having certain routines, I think that's something that works well for everyone and something that he also appreciates, like knowing like, okay, well, this is the morning routine, this is the night routine. I think just instills like a sense of order in life for everyone.
Does
And
he
that's
fight them?
no,
No. He gets annoyed if we skip something, especially if he's tired. Like, I don't know, if we read the book before brushing the teeth, then he's like,
Okay.
oh, that's how the routine works. Yeah.
Can you walk me through this routine?
the evening routine is dinner, and after that he will have something sweet at the end, and after that we'll go have a shower if we do it before. But it depends on the day. And after that, he'll brushing his teeth and then reading 2 or 3 books and
Oh, he watches a couple of videos.
watches a couple of short videos on the phone and then 2 or 3 books. And then, yeah, and then just putting him to bed and then a whole like conversation, of course, with the lights on. And
Yeah.
then finally, okay, now it's time to sleep. And then hopefully that's it.
When I make him sleep, which is most of the days, I go, he asks me to lie down next to him. He doesn't do that with you, Tom.
Well, recently it does.
Oh, no, recently.
Okay.
Yeah, he wants me to lie down and he says, oh, it's normal. That's a normal thing. Like, okay, it's a normal thing. It's been the normal for 5 years. So that's what he does. Oh, and we have 3 questions. And this is something I started. And now I'm like, oh, why did I start? At night, we ask, it's nice, but it can be very long. Like at the end, he's a very chatty boy. He's very, very
Like his
chatty.
dad.
Yeah, he was, yeah. So I asked him, or we asked him, what was your favorite part of the day? What made you laugh? And what was it that you didn't like of the day if something happened that he didn't like? So we always go through those 3 questions. But now he's very specific. If I tell him, oh, my favorite part of the day was taking you to school in the morning, he's like, no, it has to be from work. So yes.
So it's not only him talking. The three of you are playing that, right?
It's
No.
whoever puts him to sleep. But yeah, he will also ask
Okay.
us to come,
okay. Mhm.
which times is very challenging. Yeah, once I gave a few things and it was like, no, that was in the evening. It's not, it wasn't the day. I'm like, it's very great.
They're so smart.
Yeah. What I mean, it's nice, but why the reason why I was saying I don't know why I started this is because he can continue talking about many things like forever. And then it gets so into like tonight. I was like, okay, no, you have to go to sleep. We're going to stop talking. That's it. No more talking. Mm.
My technique, I usually just pretend to fall asleep. So
Does it work?
I think he will be like, he'll say something on me as if I'm like already half asleep. And then finally, he just gives up and falls asleep.
Yeah.
And does he like this exercise? Those questions? Is he excited to do them?
Yeah, he loves it. He loves that. And sometimes when we go to my parents-in-law to have dinner, usually on Fridays, we come back and it's too late. So sometimes I ask him in the car, for example, okay, let's do our questions while we're driving, while we're going back home so that we don't do them when we're in bed. And he's like, no, he really likes to do them at night.
Those moments are great. We try to do the same kind of sharing thing over just before dinner. And when when Kevin and I forget to throw this conversation, they would be the ones saying, hey, we didn't, and they're excited to share it. It's not exactly the same. The thing we say is, what are we grateful for? The young one can keep saying the same thing for weeks. It's something that happened a long time ago and he keeps saying it, which is always very cute and fun. Anyways, yeah. So, what would be one of the most important traits, like a thing that you would love for him to have, either to pass it on to him or cultivate that, or at least do your best so that he has that kind of trait, or it's not
Mhm.
really about personality, it's more about something very deep, that's a
What?
baggage, something that he would have forever, if any, what would that be?
Sure. Maybe equanimity, just ability to stay calm and not react to whatever happens.
Hmm.
Why is it important to you?
I just think that it has the potential to make life easier.
Have you
If you,
learned that yourself
yeah, I
the
think if
hard
you're,
way, or
well, I think we all do. I mean, we constantly find ourselves reacting to things. I think a lot of things can become a lot simpler if we just let them be and not necessarily react right away. So yeah, I think the ability to stay calm and not have to be constantly reactive to what's happening. Pretty
how
good.
are you helping him do that?
I think just hopefully by setting an example. It's not something that you teach by, hey, do it this way or do it that way. It's more about, and I think going back to our discussion about the tantrum and like how we deal with that, I think the worst way to deal with the tantrum is to start yelling at each other and reacting to it, right? And so that's why I try, don't always succeed, but try to not react to it. By putting it, by doing whatever I need to do to try to stay sane and
Mm.
not upset by the situation. I mean, it's his right to be upset. He can be upset and angry, and that's perfectly fine. So, okay, you can be upset. I don't have to get upset by the fact that you're upset.
Mhm.
And when you're done being upset and we can talk, then we'll do that.
Can you give me an example of a time where your first reaction or emotion to something was to be really pissed, but because he was there, you changed, and what did you do? Help us understand, how do you do that yourself?
I'm not sure if I have like an example off the top of my head.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because it comes very natural to you.
No, I don't want this to sound like I'm some kind of a saint because I'm
No.
really not.
Yeah, yeah. Every now and
Um,
then you lose it.
no, I also lose it, but also when I don't lose it, it's still difficult. Like it's not like oh, it's so easy for me to like not react to my son screaming and like it's terribly difficult and annoying. But I
Mm.
know that if I'll get annoyed and if I will react to it, it's probably just going to make it worse. Again, it's not that I don't get upset or angry or all those things. I do very
Yeah.
much, but I think maybe a little better trained at it going for that walk or like recognizing when is the right time to have a discussion or not.
Was it something, Yotam, that you've worked on because you consciously wanted to change? Or is it something more that you've always had? Like, at least you were calmer than other people when something like this happened?
I think it's definitely something that I had to work on. I think in the past I would even at work and or work situations like in the past if I got like an email that would make me mad, I would right away sit there and be like and respond right away. Nowadays I would never do that. If I recognize that I'm mad and like you feel your blood like pumping, okay,
Mm,
maybe now is not the right time to write that email, right?
mm.
So it's definitely something that I've improved over the years, and I think meditating has helped a lot. Been doing it for quite some years now, and I think it's helpful.
Have
Yeah.
you tried initiating your kid to meditation?
Just by inspiration, not
Yeah.
by I really think that probably works better instead of like trying to convince someone to do something, or like that he's probably going to pick up a bunch of good and bad things that we do.
How about you, Sandra?
I thought about it, and I think I maybe two of them. One, I think I mentioned it before. I want him to know where he comes from in terms of where we both come from. Yeah, my not only my nationality but my culture and Yotam's culture. I want him to be aware of that, and I want him to be surrounded by other diverse people. I want him to value that diversity that we're very lucky to have here in Australia. Um, so yeah, I want him to be aware of that, and I was very happy to be able to take him to Colombia and see all the things that I talked to him about my country of origin and my food and all of that. I want him to keep that with him. Like maybe it's not going to be as strong as it is because I was born and raised in Colombia and he was born and raised here. But I want him to always know that there is a diverse cultural background in
Mm.
him. So that is very important to me. The other thing is making friends, which is something that I like. I was thinking, talking to a friend on the weekend, actually, I told her I want him to have the financial intelligence of Yotam and my social intelligence.
That's a very good resume.
Yeah, I want him to be able to have like long-term friendships and to value friendships. We've lately been talking about that sometimes some of his friends are a bit mean to him, and we talk about that, how you shouldn't be mean to your friends, and if someone makes you feel bad, then that's not the place to be. That if you feel like you cannot talk things through, maybe just get away from that because no one should make you feel bad or like those kind of topics in children's terms. So basically that cultural diversity and that social intelligence.
How are you helping him with the social thing?
It's
Mm.
hard for me because my best friends, like my lifelong friends, they're not here with me,
Mm.
of course. One lives in Canada, the other one lives in Germany, the other ones are in Colombia. So I cannot show him firsthand like how these friendships are. But I talked to him about my friends, and I'm like, my friend who lives in Canada. And then when we went to Colombia, he met some of my friends, and I talked to him about them. But here, what I do is like, he had some very close friends in his kindergarten. And now that he moved to school, these other friends went to other schools. So they're not as close as they used to be. So I try to keep in touch with them and plan some play dates for them to see each other again. I also encourage him to have friends, not only, yeah, I know, you know how boys get to this, or children in general get to this point, like I only play with boys or I only play with girls. I want him also, as long as it's possible, yeah, to play also with girls. So I arrange play dates with his female friends from kindy. So just, and I tell him like we should like keep in touch with our other friends because they were really good friends, even if we're not together every day anymore. So that's what I try to do.
I mean, judging by the amount of birthday parties that he goes through, I don't think he's struggling on in this front.
And it's funny because we have been lucky in that sense that he was invited to everyone's birthdays in Hindi, like even to like girls. He was the only boy in in the party, and it was like a princess party, and he was the only boy there because he's friends of the girl. And now when we talked to the teacher, she said, "Oh yeah, he's friends of everyone's, and he gets along with everyone." Yeah,
This is
so
very comforting as parent to hear this.
it
Mm.
is. Yeah, yeah. So I think he's doing well in that sense.
Very interesting. You mentioned, Sandra, earlier that he's watching a bit of videos and stuff like that. What's your position in terms of technology and raising a kid?
The videos, I can tell you how it all started. And I'm like, I knew that I was opening like a Pandora box here, but it was when we had to start brushing his teeth, and he wouldn't stay still. He hated it. He would scream. And then we found out that if I played a video, it was a video about brushing teeth, by the Wiggles. Yeah. So it's like a song that lasts 2 minutes or something like that, and they're kids brushing their teeth. So it started like that, and we found out that it was easy to do it like that. Well, he was like your time used to say that you can do a brain surgery while he's watching videos, and he would just continue doing it, like to cut his nails.
Yes. It's
Mm,
hypnotized by
Yeah.
it's very scary at times
They
when
did.
you watch them see something and nothing exists anymore.
Yeah, but we do control that. It started with one video. Now we do 2 videos and a couple of short videos of animals.
I mean, the way I look at it is the same way that I look at like giving him sweets.
Yeah.
Which is
If he can have some sweets, and I would prefer for him to have it and enjoy it in a good measure.
Mhm.
So just as long as it's like not well under control and not like completely crazy, that's fine, and that's probably better than try to uh,
Prime.
deprive him of that
Mhm.
entirely, because that will probably make him a lot hungry for whatever it is, chocolate or videos or.
Yeah.
So I personally don't have too much trouble with it. I think
Yeah.
as he grows up, the one thing that I feel like I am going to be pretty strict about is just social media.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I just think that is dangerous and something that even
Yeah.
if he wanted to control, he will find it. I mean, if we are as adults having trouble controlling those things,
Yeah.
how can you expect a kid to be able to control that?
Yeah. And I don't know if you know, but they established this here in Australia. You cannot have a social media profile unless you're 16 and up. It,
16. Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's what they established last year. But
Is
yeah, sorry?
is it something that concerns you right now? Like he's just 5, so like he still has a bit of time ahead of him.
It doesn't concern me because he's not affected by it, and he's not like he doesn't
Mhm.
have the desire to, like he's too young for that. But it's
Mm,
definitely something I feel that when the
Yeah.
time comes and all his friends all of a sudden, start doing that, and he will probably want to do it too. Yeah, the same way that I'd be concerned if he wanted to start smoking at the age of 12 or
mm,
Yeah.
at any age. Yeah, there's certain things that you can probably try to do later in life because you'd be able to better control how you do it,
Mhm.
but not as a kid.
Yeah. I think that I am more anxious in general about these things. Maybe because I use social media more than Yotam does. And I'm more concerned about that social pressure that he will find in at school. And I would love for him to be able to trust us and come to us. Like if we manage to figure out what the good balance for him, a bit scared about how important that social pressure would be. Like if he has friends who already have a phone when they're 12 and they
mhm.
have social media, or their parents are more flexible on that, then he would, of course, complain about us not allowing him to do that. And I don't want him to go and open, I don't know, a social media profile or other things, like trying to hide that from us because he feels that we're too strict with that. That is my main concern.
Yeah, we keep telling ourselves this. How do you build and nurture trust? So we can have this conversation, and for sure, when they're 5, 6, 7, you're still their main referent in terms of advice and trust. But as soon as they start having their group of friends, and then you're no longer relevant or not necessarily
Mhm.
relevant to their opinions and what they're expecting.
Part of the reason why I think it's probably better to be more flexible on things that matter less,
Mm.
so that you can reserve the important stuff.
Like what, for
Like,
example?
so yes, we're not strict about how he eats, and we're not strict about like a lot of things. But again, like there's certain things that we are strict. You're not allowed to hit anyone, and you're not allowed to use social media.
Yeah.
There are not going to be a lot of things that we're going to say you're not allowed to do this and this and this and this. No, you can do many things, but there are just a few things that are really important that you can't do.
There are a lot of teams working on different AI plugged discussion toys for kids. So I came across this, and Kev and I had the opposite reaction to this toy. So he was like, this is amazing. Look how he can learn XYZ. And I really couldn't see how this could be beneficial to a kid. What's your, how would you, what's your reaction?
Is it like a ChatGPT in a stuffed toy and they can
Kind of. It's a teddy bear who would have conversation with the kid, tell him stories based on what the kid has input in the beginning. He would just get to learn what the kid is interested about and blah, blah, blah. Have you heard about this kind of things first?
I mean, I can imagine how it would behave. I think I would feel probably uncomfortable with that, just like I would feel uncomfortable about now I'm having a conversation with a stranger. So I think there's a difference between normies having a conversation with the school teacher or like someone who I trust that knows how to have a conversation with my son. And do I have, complete faith and trust in now I'm having a conversation with some kind of a product that is designed not necessarily just to educate my son, but maybe also to monetize that somehow. No, I won't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that. I agree. I would find it very creepy. And also, I think it would lose interest.
Even worse is that if
Yeah.
it doesn't lose interest, if it becomes too attached.
I'm just thinking, like, based on his reaction to many toys, you know, how they play with them for a couple of days and then they forget that they exist. But yeah, I wouldn't like to have something like that because I'm pretty sure they're listening. Like our phones are listening to us, and then I don't want my son to be exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't like that.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. To me, the main problem, how those things are engineered to, because they're answer the kid and they start behaving like a human in terms of interaction. Like you ask me a question, I answer this question. I'm learning from you and I'm becoming more of what you expect me to be. And so this attachment, well, because I try to think about it and I was like, why am I so nervous about it? Because in one positive way, the kid could learn a language with this animal. Like you'd say, okay, teach me, and they would start talking and I don't know, like, and learning a language and having conversation, blah blah blah. The attachment part for me is something. Well, I'm thinking that if you're a kid learning what the social skills are and you start mixing a toy with a friend, like I don't know what it could create.
That's right. I think it's pretty important to learn social skills, to learn how to speak to other humans.
People. Yeah.
And I think if you sort of like default into these easy conversations with a tool that is designed to be your best friend no matter what, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to then foster like real relationships.
There's
Yeah.
this whole thing about character.ai. I think you've heard about this, like, the kind of a character.ai, the
Yeah.
chatbot thing it's kind of now widely used. Like, I think they have something like 20 million users. And there was this case of a teenage kid taking his life. It's a kind of a chatbot where you make friends and you design your friends the way you want. And talking about this attachment and then the distortion about reality, what's my real friend versus what's my like online fake bot, like, and there's this whole case about abusing children or teenagers, and up to the point where it's a drama. We'll probably have to, when our kids become teenager, not only social media, but we'll probably have to integrate those challenges as well of this whole, it's not meeting your friends online, it's having friends that are not human, like, kind of new challenge, which is even, I don't know, it's a different challenge. And I was wondering, Yotam, do you, as a VC, do you see projects who are designed for kids and using AI? What do you think about them?
Can't really think of any example for kids in particular. But yeah, I think just like with any new technology, depends how we use it. You can use a knife to cook, you can use a knife to kill someone. So it just depends on what you do with it. So I don't know how I feel about it. On the one hand, I think there's so much benefit that can be taken from it. But yeah, it's all new and can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, my concern about AI is the lack of actual regulations that we have nowadays. And they're going to integrate that with children or educating children, which is such a difficult topic or sensitive topic, I would say. That's the danger of it. And if we're going to think about that lack of regulation with such a complex topic as attachment in children
And
or
critical, yeah, for children.
yeah,
It's hard to see when regulation should come. Like if regulation comes way too early, then like it annihilates innovation. But if it comes too late, it's already like, big innovation can do a lot of damage. So when and how should they come into place, basically? Okay. I have one last question that I'm
okay.
interested. Is there any book or newsletter or thing that you really enjoyed or are enjoying following as parents where you learn a lot from that you'd like to recommend?
Recently, we watched a movie by our friend Sandra Yotam, produced this movie that's called Scene, Seen. It's all about
No.
parenting.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, it was a very good documentary movie about the relationships between parents and their kids. The movie is mostly about the parents, not about the kids.
Like parenting your own child. Like um the point was that in when we're raising children in our parenting journey, many of the things that we experienced as children come out, whether we want it or not. So yeah, it's basically the exploration of the parenting journeys of different families and how they realize that many of the things that they do in their parenting style come from their experiences as children. And it is like exploring and kind of healing those wounds that you might have.
That, as parents, we often feel like, oh, why can't my kid like do exactly what I'm asking them to do? If only he obeyed to what I told him, life would be so much easier. And that's really not how it works. Kids are designed to be kids and designed to have their own mind and behave in a particular way. And parents really have to learn to accept that and to be fine with that and accept kids as they are in a way.
Yeah.
And coming back to exactly what you are saying right now and to the tantrum part that you were talking about earlier, Maria Montessori has a very strong case against the word tantrum. And what's very interesting, because we all use this word here and there, every time there's a crisis, we use tantrum to describe this. And the thing for her is that what we call tantrum is really an expression of an immense frustration on the kid's side that he doesn't know how to express, but it's behind the word tantrum, there's always something about he's being annoying us, like there's something mean
Yeah.
or something very negative where she puts it back to the child's, like for her, it's really like the kid shouting at us, like, listen to me, listen to my needs, and hear what I like. You're not listening. I needed time to do that, and you're rushing me, or I was into something and you're asking me to do something else. And
Yeah.
if you analyze every single action where your kid has been throwing a tantrum, it's very often that we are the disruptor of something that they're actually doing. And I like the fact that this is going all into, yeah, being conscious that it's not a kid. And as you were saying, there's a hierarchy. It's how this kid is becoming a human, a citizen. And how do we listen to them? Even though it's hard, at times it's really hard. But I'm excited to see this documentary. So there's this movie and anything else?
Yeah, so two things. Well, she's a children's psychologist and she's Colombian, but I think she lives in the States. I don't know. She has an Instagram called Manuela Molina. It's her name. And the name of her program, or I don't know, it's Mind Heart kids. And she talks about that. Like, it's gentle parenting because she gives
Mm-hmm.
good examples. I think she wrote a book for kids. So I follow her and I really like what she does, Mm, especially because the her target group is Latin American parents, yeah, who want to just break that cycle of raising kids with physical punishment and very strict. Yeah, so she's
Mm,
more like understanding the children and their
okay.
needs and approaching parenting in a different way, in a respectful way. The other thing uh, that I think I was lucky when I had known I started working with Sam Jokel. She has a platform where she has lots of videos on parenting. So you can
So
find,
she's the one who did the movie, is it? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So she
Mm-hmm.
has Parent TV. So I had the opportunity to translate her content to Spanish, so from
Mm.
English to Spanish. So I had to watch many of her videos and go through them and translate them and then dub them. So I learned a lot. I had a tiny baby and I was learning about feeding, sleeping, tantrums, and I every now and then I found a video that I found very useful and so she has on this platform on Parent TV, you can find many experts like psychologists, psychiatrists, dietitians, everything for children. So you find if you want to know, oh, why is my kid not eating? You'll go there.
You'll find an answer.
Yeah, so I was very lucky to have that. And from that, I followed Maggie Dent, who's an Australian parenting educator. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
follow her too. She's very big. She has a podcast too, and she's great also in the way she explains. She has boys, and she has a book about like raising boys.
Cool. Would you like to say something to wrap this up? Like things that you had wanted to talk about and we didn't talk about?
How's your parenting journey?
Wow.
How's yours?
That's we just love this. It's a roller coaster of emotions. You
Yeah.
learn a lot about yourself. It's very humbling. It's
Mhm.
very empowering as well. I don't know, and scary at times. And a cuddle makes it, like you forget about anything else.
And
So we're trying to enjoy every step of the way because everyone ahead of us is telling us that, they're gone so soon. Then, just trying to even when it's hard to just enjoy every second and use it as an experiment, as a way to become less bad the second time. This kind of things, but that's it.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much, guys. I'm just gonna
Thank you
stop the
for
recording.
Hmm? Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you